Greetings from Hopalong Hollow. It's Jerry, and today I am absolutely in the mud. We finally got a little bit of a break in the weather, and so I'm out here taking advantage of it by relaying this walkway because I am so tired of this walkway. So every year I have to come in here on this path, and it's a pretty wide path, about 4 foot, and really long because it goes around 2 different gardens and into the courtyard. So every year, even though I load this with stone every year, it gets mashed into the ground because of all the animal traffic here, or filled with grass, patches of grass and weeds. So I'm just tired of having to do this all the time. So I'm gathering as much stone as I can from around the place, wherever I can find it, in the creek, on the hillside, in the meadow, everywhere I can get this stone, and I'm trying to lay a stone pathway. That way I will not have to fight with these rocks sinking into the ground every year. So that's my job at the beginning of the day. So good to be outside. And of course we're starting this video out here in the mud, where it's really quite dirty, but we're going to end the video in a completely different way, inside the house, in a very pretty room. So on with it. As you can see, this is a really long and wide pathway, so I'm going to need a lot of stones. It's going to take me a long time to scavenge enough stones to fill this up, and this is only half of it. The other half is just as long as this. At this point, I'm really not worried about whether or not this is level. I will go back later and level it out, but right now I'm just trying to put them in place and see how many more I have to gather. A lot. I have to gather a lot. Almost perfect. That. So close to finishing this side of the walkway, but that is all the stone that I have left. For now, I'll just slay the rest of this and just see how far it gets me. So close to finishing this all the way to the end. And of course I have a lot of leveling off to do and filling in with some broken bits of slate and sand, and everything's still pretty muddy. Ugh, look at that. But just a couple more stones and I'll be there. Hi, Titus. People were complaining about you, Titus. Well, I got quite a way. I just need just a couple more stones to finish this side. Except that, oh, it's getting dark, it's getting cold, and it's time to go in, clean up, and go look at some pretty things for a while, rather than mud and crooked stones. But I almost made it. I would say if I could get about, 2 more large flat stones, we'll be all the way there. Well, the mud has been cleared off, and I am now upstairs in a very, very pretty bathroom. And I did a video, an entire video, and went into great detail in this bathroom a couple years ago, so I'll link that below. So I'm not doing that in this video. I'm just going to talk about some of these collections in here, and all about certain antiques, give you a little information about them in case you might want to collect that sort of thing. I'm also going to talk about artfully arranging your antiques or your displays. So here we are. I'm standing in front of what at one point was a butler's pantry, but it was dismantled and we brought it here and we put it back together again in the bathroom. It's a pretty large bathroom because this bathroom had no closets whatsoever. In fact, this house never even had an inside bathroom until the 1960s, 1965 to be exact. So this was actually at one point a bedroom, and now it's just a very large bathroom. Now we're in a room that's very different from the landing that I showed you a couple of days ago in the last video, which is really much more rustic and early American. This is really more of an Edwardian room. It's got a lot of romantic, soft and beautiful linens and hats and florals in it. It's a completely different look than the landing. So we're going to start out by looking at some of these displays and how they're done. I think the first thing we're going to look at are these antique purses displayed on this dress form. The dress form looks like it's old, but it's not. I actually got it when a department store nearby, an upscale department store, closed, and they were selling all their props, and we got this great piece right here along with a lot of other hat stands and that sort of thing. But what I want to concentrate on are some of these little purses. The most remarkable thing about antique purses is that they were so terribly, terribly small. Just look at how tiny that is, and you have to wonder, what could you even put in a purse like this, aside from a few coins? Now, these purses, which are absolutely so fun to touch because they're so soft and silky, but they're actually made of metal, and they were called German silver purses. There wasn't an ounce of silver in them, however. They were actually made a combination of copper, zinc, and nickel. Now, there were two types of mesh purses. This particular purse would be called chain links, and they're such tiny, tiny, tiny little links, such tiny little pieces that you'd have to get some extremely good magnifying glasses on just to see them. This is tarnished so much that it almost looks black, but when I bought it long ago, it actually, you could see the colors on it. It actually had some floral designs with greens and pinks. But these are not easy to keep nice. However, you can still see the beautiful green in the clasp here. So this kind of mesh purse would have been called chain because they're tiny, tiny, tiny little chains linked together. And they're very, very, very delicate but strong. And this mesh purse would have been called armor, and you can see that this is just not quite so delicate, but oh, the way these feel on your hand is really nice. So the art of displaying these purses on this mannequin is simply a way of arranging them so that each one actually shows. What I really want to see on this little linen purse here with the embroidery, which actually is my favorite purse up here because it's just so simple, I want the embroidery to show. So on each side you can see that embroidery, including these little pom-poms on the bottom. And then this one was a needlepoint purse, and you can still see the design. So here I've arranged the little necklaces so that they aren't blocking the design right there on this needlepoint tapestry purse. And the little mesh purse down here on the bottom, the German silver, which actually has no silver in it whatsoever. I want that green metal to be exposed. So I think one way to look at this is, no, your house is not a museum, but when you're putting together displays, pretend that it's a museum, because you have to be very careful in how you display things. If you're collecting anything, there's a reason for it. You want to see it. You want to look at it every day, and you want to be able to appreciate it. So you want it exposed to the eye in the most pleasing manner that is possible. And now these are so much fun. These are 1920s, 1930s hat stands. And as you can see by the little hats that they are wearing and their hairstyles, very, very, very 1920s. This was one of my more exuberant purchases about, I don't know, 20 years ago. Is a bigger, much bigger purse than most of them, because it's made with velvet. Look at all the room in this purse. A very nice tassel, a handle, and inside, wow, look at that. I can get a lot in that purse. We have a display of linens, quilts, lace collars, handkerchiefs, and hats. Don't really need to say a whole lot about this. You can see that they've been displayed so that they are showing, so that you can see the eyelet on the lace, so that you can see the pattern on the quilt, the flowers on the hats, and the fact that this basket purse is just stuffed with collars. And this is an artful display. There's no vanity under the sink to store things. We brought up a kitchen cabinet. This would have been a kitchen cabinet 1900, 1930, even up to the 1940s, they used these kitchen cabinets. These were the first kitchen cabinets before they built them into the walls. They made these. They were freestanding. You could move them around the room. Often known as a Hoosier, but that actually was a brand name. Kitchen cabinets held all your baking supplies and your canned goods and all of your tools. Often there were flour bins built inside of these and places for salts and spices, etc. But I love to use unusual furniture in strange places, and this is a wonderful way to use this cabinet in a bathroom. In a cabinet like this, there's no shortage of drawers, so you've got some very, very deep drawers in here. You've even got a slide-out shelf here, which would have been used for the housewife to roll out her bread dough, or cookie dough, pie crust. And that leaves these wonderful shelves, 3 shelves behind glass, in order to display your beautiful things, your pretty things, your attractive things, your antiques. And also shelves down here. And we are displaying a lot of pieces here, which are also boxes that are hiding things that we really don't particularly want out in the open. But I want to talk about, first of all, these boxes. And these are called celluloid boxes. I'm going to start out by showing you a few celluloid items on these shelves. Celluloid was also known as French ivory, and it was a plastic invented in the mid-1800s. And the reason it was called French ivory, absolutely had no ivory in it whatsoever. It was called French ivory because it actually had that sort of a beautiful vanilla look of ivory. That sweet French vanilla like that. It was used for any number of items: razors, hair adornments, corset bones, holiday decor, and jewelry as well. But I want to show you a few of these little pieces up here that are made of celluloid and actually very collectible. This very small, beautiful purse, another one of those small purses, is celluloid encased in this beautiful metalwork. And inside, you can sort of get an idea of what a woman would have carried in one of her beautiful little purses. She would have, this would have been a little powder puff would be in here. I imagine this would be some kind of a lipstick. There's a little damage on it. I can't get that to go back in. And here's a very silvered out mirror. Couldn't ever see a reflection in there now. I suppose this would have been for some paper money. And here we have quarter, nickel, and dime slots. So that was a very useful and beautiful item made of celluloid. Here we have a beautiful little case, which is enclosing a manicure set. So here you have all the implements you would need to have lovely fingernails. Something I could use. I still have mud under my fingernails from laying the walkway. So you have here a nail file, some tweezers, some other little items for doing your nails, and here we have a little buffer. So this material here is the celluloid. 2 perfume bottles nestled in a celluloid case. One thing you'll often find are mirror sets, hairbrushes, and combs made of celluloid. But another use for the celluloid was on boxes, where they would take a very thin slip of it, thin coat of it, and put it on jewelry boxes. For example, this jewelry box, my mother gave it to me for a birthday gift when I was about 20, but it has some serious, serious problems. The celluloid here looks really good. It looks like a marbled effect. You can see that on the top it's beginning to crack and chip, and that's the problem with the celluloid. It had a tendency to become brittle and then just break, chip, and crack right on your piece. But I want to show you, they must have improved it, because a lot of these boxes that I have sitting on the table are also covered in celluloid, and they're in excellent condition. And they're just as old as this jewelry box. So let's take a look at these. These more ornate celluloid boxes were used for everything from ties, hosiery, gloves, hat boxes even, and cuff boxes. So they really are very pretty, so many different designs, and almost always they will have florals on them, as you can see, and then something that is the center of attention in the middle, which is generally some sort of romantic or idyllic scene. But one thing I look for, if I'm looking for a celluloid box, is the embossing, which many of them have. You can see how this is raised, this beautiful raised edge here, but you can also see that it's cracked on the edge. This one is in, oh, let's take a look at what it says inside. I don't know why it was lined in red. That just seems kind of odd. But somebody has written on the inside, neckties. And often they have satin on the inside, either tufted or plain. So this one I would say is in fairly good condition. And hopefully your latch will be intact. That's one thing I really look for, is I want it to have both sides of the latch, and on the back the original little hinges. Really determines whether or not I purchase one of these boxes is, of course, the price, but because I always look at the floral design on it. And even if the latch is missing, which in this case the top latch is, the floral design and the shape of the box, because this one is really unique, is what got me. I also liked the subject matter in the center, and this was probably a box used for those stiff collars that women, and both men and women, wore, and cuffs in the Edwardian times. But the interior on this box is also in pretty good shape. When I'm displaying these, I'm displaying them according to what I want. The most visible and pleasing aspect of this box to me is the top. So I want those images to show. I think this one is really interesting because it has a little drawer in the bottom. I don't know what that was used for. I think cufflinks, because I think this was actually on the dresser, and even though it's got sort of a feminine appearance to it, I think it was a man's collar box, because in the center of the box there is something in there that would have held a collar. It actually probably had a stiff piece of cardboard running around like a ring in the middle, and you would put your collar around that. This one's ripped right here, but it's also got the nice tufted lid. See that it's got both latches are intact, the top and the bottom. But what it's really got is a very, very lovely image on the top of the box. So it's always hard to decide whether I want to leave that lid up or down, but since I put perfume bottles in it, they won't allow me to leave the lid down. So that's how I display this piece. I remember choosing this one because of the Lily of the Valley design on it, and I just thought the florals, the ivy right there on the edges, and that's what really caught my eye and my attention, and the contrasting colors on the edges here. Although this one has a broken, no, it doesn't have a broken latch. It actually has a working latch as well. Not quite in as good a condition. It's a little bit off-centered in order to close it. But the interior isn't tufted. It's funny that they would use these bright interior colors, but it could be that the colors on the outside have just faded over the years and the interior has not. You can buy these boxes anywhere from $12 up to $100 or more. But I want to show you one that is probably in the best condition of all, so to show you what to look for. This one is in excellent condition. It's a smaller box. You can see the embossing along the edge here, which is pretty nice. Everything seems to be intact as far as the celluloid is not peeling off. It's got the latches on both sides, and the interior is actually pretty nice. When I got this one, it had all these little hairpins in it. Look at that. So these were probably an Edwardian treat, even Victorian, because they actually were invented. The celluloid was invented in the mid-1800s. And what I even love about them is even on the bottom, they've got this beautiful tiny little floral print that you can see right there. So it's very, very, they're very pretty, they're very feminine, and very romantic boxes. I don't think I spent more than $24 on any of these boxes. So learning how to display your collections is something that a lot of people have some trouble with, and they don't quite know how to do it. So if I can give any tips that could help, that is what I want to do today. Now you can see that everything is arranged not all in a straight line. I'm staggering the heights, and when I want something to show, because it has interest, I want to make sure that I don't block the view of that item. For example, they seem like they're very small things, but they really do matter when you're doing a display. So you can see the colors in the top of this celluloid box, and you can see the color of the ribbon on that little bottle of perfume. Well, they're picking up the same colors, and it may seem like a very small thing, but it really does matter. But also I want the names of those two perfumes to show, so that when I go to get it, I know exactly which one I'm picking up, because that is perfume that I use. But it makes a very beautiful display, and then right behind it is a mirror. Now up here on this particular display, we've got another flower box and very small bottles of perfume, but they're not all standing in a little line like soldiers. They are dispersed in threes and threes. To give you an idea of what I'm talking about, I'm going to use 3 bars of soap, which are all the same size. They don't have the same patterns on the papers, but they're all the same size as far as the bars of soap. Now, if you were in the department store and you saw these soap, this is likely what they may look like. But it isn't very interesting, is it? It's a lot more interesting when you do things with them. Maybe you can do something like this. This is more interesting. Or let's just forget that the sign that's on it. We're just talking about the shape of the object here. So let's say we want to make it even more interesting. Let's put one this direction, one this direction, and one this direction, or even this direction. Now we've got 3 different heights, and it makes it a lot more interesting. You see, it's all about how you position things and how you give them different heights. So I'm going to show you how I've done that on this perfume shelf. These are old perfume and toiletry bottles. Some of them are antique bottles with original labels, and some of them are antique bottles with reproduction labels on them, such as this is a reproduction label. This is the real thing, and it still actually has some bath salts in it. This beautiful bottle here is also original. Colgate and Company of Perfume. But the way I arrange them is so that each label shows, because the label is part of the artwork, but they're not standing straight in a row. As I said before, they are all staggered in different heights to make it a lot more interesting and to focus in on one particular thing. Things get lost in the crowd when they're all in a straight line. It's kind of the same process that you would do in designing a garden. You don't want plants of all the same height in a row, unless of course they're tulips or something like that. But you want to change your plant heights and their levels and their colors, but you still want them to be compatible and beautiful. So what's compatible here? Well, they're all toiletry bottles. except for those bunnies on the end. Now you notice that here in the middle I don't have anything, and that's because when I close the doors, anything behind those two pieces of wood in the center of the door would be hidden and you wouldn't see it anyway, and these doors are closed 99% of the time. So again, you don't just jumble them up here. You want to actually think about this. You actually want to design a shelf. You want to design this display, and according to color, or maybe even, what do we have here? Maybe I want to pick, see this little green perfume thing. I love this little green perfume. This is a little portable perfume container, but it's picking up the wonderful green on this bottle right here, and the wonderful green on these leaves. So this is something you're actually thinking about. You are creating an art display or a museum display on your bathroom shelf or on your dresser. That's one good way to think about it, because it's not just a bunch of stuff on a shelf. It's your way of expressing yourself through an artistic and beautiful display. Put this a little more succinctly, but let me try it this way. When you've got a large collection of something, of one item, and you have one place to put it, you don't want things getting lost in the crowd. And that is why you want to stagger things, move them forward, move them backward, give them their own distinct place, so that each one is sort of like an individual item, and you can pick out with your eye each item and look at it and observe it and enjoy it, because it's not lost in the crowd like a field of poppies. A field of poppies is something you appreciate as a whole, but a row of perfume bottles, you want to appreciate them individually and one at a time, or any other thing that you're collecting. Why do we like perfume bottles? Because they're always very beautiful, they're very feminine, they're very romantic, they're easy to find, and they're small. So they're actually, you can find little nooks and crannies in which to place them. Now on the other side here of the shelf, you can see that the vanilla-colored celluloid, the French ivory as they called it, is all gathered here in this corner. So these are all of like look, and they are gathering on this shelf along with a little compact, which also is compatible with this old purse and the manicure set. Oh, and this is so funny, this is so cute. Gosh, I bought this so long ago. It's an ever-ready razor. Just look at that ever-ready razor. They even made the razors beautiful in the Edwardian days. I think that goes pretty well on the shelf as well. The celluloid fell out of favor with the masses because it was discovered that it was highly flammable. One of several instances involved a woman whose skirt burst into flames as she was warming herself by the fire because the stays in her corset were made of celluloid. And eventually, celluloid was replaced with something called bakelite in around 1907. However, it's not really something you have to worry about if you're collecting celluloid boxes or mirrors or hairbrushes or any of those things. Some things forward, bring some things way back, bring other things way back. Nevertheless, they're all in different levels. You can still see the front of every bottle. You can see a little lace cuff here, and the clothes brush. The only thing you can't see is this little cigarette case, but I need to work on that. And all along down the shelf, thing that Titus has been sleeping in this chair in the bathroom the entire time I've been videoing, so I guess that's probably good, because those little bells around his neck were pretty noisy last time. Cabinet is this very, very old bodice in just decrepit shape. It was like this when I bought it. It's so unfortunate. It's almost a tragedy, because it's just a great piece of wearable history, and The sad thing is, it's been demolished by probably moths got to it at some point. You can see how it was probably moths got into this fabric and absolutely demolished it. There is no conserving that. None. Even a professional conserver couldn't do anything with this, in my opinion. You would have to replace this upper fabric. However, the fabric underneath it seems to be in really good shape, so my thought is to simply remove the outer layer of fabric and expose what's underneath. And then I'll probably have to fill this piece with lavender or some kind of mint or something just to keep the bugs away, even if I have to use mothballs. Miraculously, they didn't touch this collar, which is kind of like a velveteen plaid. I love that. And the buttons are gorgeous. Just look at all the time it took to make those buttonholes. And they're all sewn by hand. This was a hand-sewn garment with a teeny tiny waist. I'd say this is an Edwardian bodice. I removed all that bad fabric. Well, not all of it, because the front still has some little spots, but... And I took fabric off the entire back because it was really bad too. Try to keep that fabric from any further damage by hanging a bag of lavender around the neck. And see if that keeps away whatever has been eating this beautiful outfit. Something as simple as soaps and candles in your bathroom can be displayed beautifully. Here is a top shelf full of soaps, lotions, perfumes, and they have something in common. As you can see, birds, little bird postcard, little bird egg soap, and in the back, a bottle with lotion with a bird on it. On the second shelf, candles and soaps, and here our display is color and fruit, because the boxes, all three of them anyway, have images of fruit on them. On the shelf, we are tied together with colors. The aquas, the lavenders, and the blues. So candles and color and soap. But I want you to see that bottle of Muguet de Bois perfume. That is so old. It was my favorite perfume. I guess you could say toilet water. In high school, I loved that stuff. To show you the simplest and most miraculous way to clean your old antique metal, and it's just cost you about $2. It's just amazing. So here's that little antique purse, and you can see how absolutely tarnished it is on this side. But look at this one. Cleaned with a toothbrush and barkeeper's friend. It's amazing. So if you're antiquing and you run across a piece that's rather tarnished and it looks almost like to the point of being black, don't give up on that piece and don't pass it by if it's a good price, because you can clean it. So I'm just scrubbing it. You have to consistently and constantly clean off your brush here. Keep wiping it and you can just see that tarnish coming off of the metal. And once again, wow, you can see the design, which hasn't been visible for quite some time. So keep patience, be patient. If you've got something like this, it's just so much prettier when you take the tarnish off. Civil War lady, tintype. This is a tintype. Not quite sure how to clean the back of this. That's actually paper. But she was framed with this copper embossed little frame, and the whole thing looked like that before I took the cleaning to it. Took the barkeeper's friend and a toothbrush to clean it. You can see the top of one of the antique purses, and half of it I've cleaned. I'm not sure what the metal is, but now that it's cleaned, how wonderful that you can see the actual pattern in that metal. When it's covered with tarnish, it's just really difficult to make out anything. But here now you can see the tiny flowers all along the border, the fleur-de-lis, and on this side you see nothing. But this was completely cleaned with barkeeper's friend and a toothbrush. So now you can try metal polishes too, but some of them are so expensive. Brings an end to this day's video of artful display of objects. I hope it was helpful in many, many different ways. A little bit different than my usual videos, but gardening is few and far between in this month. However, next week we will be doing some planting of my late winter bulbs and possibly some oriental poppy roots. We'll see you next time. Hop long hollow. This is Jerry.